You're tuned in to More Living with Jim Brogan, broadcast live from the Brogan Financial Studios at News Talk 98.7, where old-fashioned values, expert knowledge, and genuine understanding come together to give you the retirement straight talk you deserve. Jim's a former National Advisor of the Year recipient and a financial educator, and he's here today to talk about how you can live out the best years of your life. Jim and the Brogan Financial team have been helping retirees and pre-retirees across the Southeast for over 20 years in their pursuit of financial independence. You can reach them during the week at 865-862-6800. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn, because More Living with Jim Brogan starts now.
Good morning and welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan. It's great to be with you. Are you one of the 80% of adults that are not exercising enough? You know, exercise is recommended for overall physical health, weight loss, management of chronic disease, and so much more. Most of us can't seem to get in the recommended 2.5 hours a week of heart-pumping movement, and that's what is typically recommended. How can we fit exercise better into our routine, and where should we start, and how should we focus on exercise? What kind of exercise? And then, of course, what about nutrition and dieting? Today I'm sitting down with Andrew Henderson from Fitness Together, an old-time friend of the show's. He has his master's degree in sports psychology, and he's a certified senior fitness specialist. Andrew has been working in the personal training and fitness industry for almost 3 decades. I've known you, Andrew, I guess, since 2017, I think it is, 2007, yeah. 17 years.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. But you've been in it for almost 3 decades, and you help people set and attain their fitness and health goals. So welcome back to More Living. It's great to have you with us.
Good to see you, Jim. Good morning, East Tennessee.
I'm gonna get Andrew here and move over to this other microphone. We've got kind of some stuff going on here in the studio with some technical stuff. We got it straightened out here. All right. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Jim.
There we go. That's crystal clear. How have you been?
Excellent. How about yourself?
I'm doing great as well. I mentioned you've been a part of the Knoxville fitness community for a long time. Were you always interested in fitness? Was that what you set out for out of college, or did it evolve?
Yeah, I was somewhat athletic in high school, played a few sports, never a great athlete, never really took the training part too seriously. Wound up getting interested in physical therapy after a soccer injury, so that was my original path, was physical therapy. About halfway through undergraduate, decided to move to psychology, came to Tennessee to get my master's in sports psychology, and that's when I really started to see the importance of having kind of your mind and your body in alignment with each other. And that's how I got interested in personal training. And almost 3 decades later, I'm still doing it. So I think I found my calling.
Yes, I think so. And I guess I met you right before you were going to launch. You had your Farragut store, and if I'm remembering correctly, and then you were launching the North Shore store.
So there was actually someone else who owned the Farragut store, and he had opened up a few months before I opened up the North Shore Drive location.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's how that all fit together. Yeah. And then about 6 months after you opened the North Shore, that was when I started coming out there.
Yeah. You were one of our first enrollees.
Well, I know. I had put quite a bit of weight on in my 30s, and I had told myself, I'd bought equipment, I'd gone through that whole routine of having it at home and all that, and I was like, you know what, if I don't get on track with the routine and getting healthier and losing weight in the next 3 months, then I'm going to have to take another step. And then that's what happened, and then that's why.
Yeah, I still remember our conversation the first day you came in.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
The American Heart Association, Andrew, and most medical professionals recommend 2.5 hours of heart-pumping exercise per week, so 150 minutes. That seems like a lot for a lot of people. How can we make it less of a daunting number?
It is what it is. I think you have to remember, the type of exercise they're recommending is typically called Zone 2 cardiovascular exercise, and that's moderate intensity. That's working at about 60 to 70% of your maximal heart rate. So, walking briskly around your neighborhood, maybe up a hill, would qualify for that. Doing bike rides, that would be my first suggestion. Is it doesn't have to be, the hardest thing ever. It just needs to be enough to get your heart rate up and to make you breathe, heavily. The second thing is find things you enjoy doing that will also be beneficial for you, and you'll find the time to do it because you enjoy doing it. For me, that's mountain biking. So I can easily ride 60, 90 minutes, and I make the time for it because I enjoy doing it. So find something that you enjoy doing, and that's half the battle.
Yeah, I really believe in that. I mean, playing tennis, playing pickleball even.
Yep.
I mean, you can get a good workout playing pickleball.
Yep.
And it's become so popular. So I think anytime, creating a habit of walking, especially with our partners, our significant others, I think is critically important.
But, it requires effort. It requires a commitment.
Planning.
It's an investment in your health, literally, and the dividends are to be found, not tomorrow, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you'll get back what you invest in it today. So
absolutely.
Keep your eye on the long game as well, and that will help you stay focused even on the days when maybe you don't think you have the time or don't want to do it. And again, it all adds up, right? So the suggestion is 150 minutes a week. So if you can do 10 or 15 or 20 minutes one day, that's still better than nothing, and you've worked towards that 150-minute goal.
Yeah, we also know from having our friend Jeff Johnson, cardiologist at University Cardiology, on the show over the years that cumulative exercise means something.
Yeah.
So, getting some here, some there, it does add up and count.
Yeah, absolutely. It all counts.
Some children didn't grow up with exercise or athletics being a part of their routine. And I know in today's world, I think it's even a bigger issue with kids today because we have such sedentary lifestyles and kids are so distracted by personal devices and things like that. Is it harder to build an exercise routine if you weren't a traditional athlete as a child?
It depends on the individual. I think for some people, they may be more intimidated, by going to a gym or a health club and not knowing what to do because they weren't exposed to it. For other people, maybe it wasn't valued when they were younger. And so, they're finally learning that they have to do it, after the doctor puts them on blood pressure medication or, their orthopedist tells them they need to lose weight or they're going to need new knees. So sometimes it takes that kind of an awakening. But, and that's why it's so important if you haven't had that experience growing up that you ease into it. You find something you enjoy doing. You go for a walk. You ride a bike. It doesn't have to be competitive.
And you don't have to kill yourself the first time out. I mean, just ease into it, right?
Yeah.
As you just said.
Yeah, ease into it. Kind of give your body a chance to get used to it, and hopefully you'll want to do more.
Our good friend and your trainer, Rufus, he doesn't, sometimes when I see him, and I haven't worked out in a while, he doesn't let me just ease back into it.
Well, yeah, because you know better, Jim.
Well, and he knows I can handle it too.
That's right. Well, yeah. That's called the price of reentry.
We're visiting with Andrew Henderson. He's the owner of Fitness Together. He's been in fitness training for close to 30 years. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about some tips on it's just so hot and humid out this summer. What are some tips? And then how do we balance cardiovascular exercise with strength training and stretching and things like that? How can you create a healthier you as you age? Stay with us. This is More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I'm Jim Brogan. We're visiting this morning with Andrew Henderson. He is been in the fitness industry for close to 3 decades. I've known him for 17 years. He owns 4 Fitness Together locations here in the Knoxville area. And we're just talking about creating a healthier you. And we're going to talk about many of the things associated with that. I do want to mention, as I did before the break there, Andrew, it's really been hot this summer. What are some tips for exercising during hot weather?
Well, not to state the obvious, but stay inside if you can. If you are going to exercise outside, look at the forecast. Most likely you're going to be better off if you can get outside earlier in the morning or in the evening when the sun is starting to set. So try to time it appropriately.
Well, and also look at the humidity
Yeah.
You can look at the humidity, not just temperature, but humidity too.
Yeah, I think it's the 90-90 rule. If it's over 90 degrees and 90% humidity, you probably want to try to stay inside. Hydrate extra, wear clothes that, I like dry fit clothes. So that way you're not walking around with, a soggy cotton t-shirt on. So dress appropriately. Ease into it, especially if you're not, if you haven't been exercising much lately, kind of start off small. Again, let your body adapt to the heat. And maybe at night too, you might want to look at doing like a magnesium or potassium supplement just to try to prevent cramps if you do really sweat a lot. If you're doing it for more than probably 45, 60 minutes outdoors, maybe do like a Gatorade or a sports drink to help you with your electrolytes as well as hydration.
And then we need to listen to our bodies. How do we know when we may or maybe if we got to stop? It's going a little bit too far.
Yeah, probably your heart rate. You're going to have an elevated heart rate because you're working harder to cool your body. Respiration is going to be higher. So I think you'll know, right? And give yourself breaks. If you're out, trying to run 5 miles, well, maybe stop for a minute after every mile and just catch your breath. Allow yourself to recover a little bit. And start off small, just like everything else.
I've never really loved running. In my periods of time when I have run and I've done different events, I love interspersing some walking breaks in the running, and there's a lot of good data behind that.
Yeah, I actually trained for a marathon doing that technique, run a mile, walk a minute, and I did that all the way up to the week before the marathon, and it served me really well. Less injuries, and you kind of look forward to that little break.
So during the actual marathon, you didn't do that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
actually,
you did?
Yeah, for the first half, I did. First 14, 15 miles, and my legs felt really fresh. So I was able to finish really strong, get in under 4 hours, and I was passing people left and right on the last mile because I still had some gas left in my leg.
That's awesome.
Yep.
When people think about exercise, a lot of times they think about jogging or taking classes at a gym, and that's not for everyone. So what are some alternative cardio exercise? You mentioned biking, you mentioned walking. What are some other things people can do, or even group fitness classes?
Again, find something that works for your body. We're blessed to be living where we live. We're surrounded by beautiful mountains and lakes. So, kayaking, paddling, swimming, hiking, going for walks,
There's
bike riding.
All kinds of things we can do to get outside and enjoy nature as well.
There is. Don't confuse activity for cardiovascular exercise. It's important to stay active, but if you're truly looking to strengthen your heart and lungs, you do need to elevate your heart rate up to at least 60 to 70% of what that should be, your max heart rate. So you do need to find something that's going to challenge that aspect of your fitness if you're truly looking to add longevity to your life and improve your cardiovascular fitness. But all activity is most likely better than no activity, especially when it comes from like a weight management control, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Moving is moving, and that's going to help you burn calories.
Well, also, our joints feel better when we move more.
Yep.
Well, the 2.5 hours, that stat, you mentioned that's Category 2 cardio. I think that's what you said. 60 to 70% on the heart rate.
Sure.
So that's cardiovascular exercise. Where are we now with what science is saying about the importance of resistance training and strength training?
Yeah, there was a study not long ago, maybe last year or two, where they found that grip strength in seniors was more closely correlated to longevity of life than any other
grip strength.
Grip strength. Yep. How strong their grip was, more closely correlated to longevity, I think, than even things like body mass index or blood pressure. So staying strong really is vital to having a long and an enjoyable life as we get into our retirement years and our golden years, so to speak. So my recommendations are at least 2 days a week of full body strength training. If you're new to exercise, using all the muscles in your body, trying to use large muscles like your legs, your hips, your back, your chest as your primary movements, and then secondary muscles like your arms and lower legs, towards the end of the workout. I would think 30 to 45 minutes, 2 to 3 days a week of focused strength training should be more than enough for most folks just looking to maintain or improve the quality of life.
That thing on the grip strength is just fascinating to hear. We know as we age, the more we can continue to do some strength training, it's just going to make things a lot easier when we're older.
Well, it's going to help you maintain your independence. It's going to allow you to be able to help others, right? As we get older, maybe our spouse or our parents may need help, getting in and out of bed, for example. Had a client a few weeks ago told me, how grateful he was of his strength and as he was able to help his wife, get in and out of bed because she was dealing with serious illness. So it's not just about having big muscles and looking good in a tank top. It's, what it lets you do every day.
So when I met you and I came in and I did a session with you at your North Shore location, you immediately right out of the bat talked about functional fitness, and functional fitness is being more and more talked about. What is functional fitness?
Functional fitness is exercising in a way that's going to have the most impact on your life outside of the gym. So whatever your activities are, whether it's yard work, tennis, playing with your kids, golf, it's finding a way to exercise that's going to allow you to get the most benefit out of the time spent in your exercise sessions throughout the rest of your life. That typically includes
bending over, picking things up,
being able to lift things up over your head. If you're flying, you need to be able to get your personal bag into the overhead compartment. If you have grandkids, and be able to bend down and scoop them up. If you're doing yard work, you need to be able to lift a 40-pound trash bag out of the bin with leaves in it. So it's just being able to live your life and do the things you want to do with as few limitations as possible due to our physical health.
And I remember I still remember that training session because you were doing things with me where I would be exercising multiple muscle groups with the same thing, doing one exercise, but not just isolating just one muscle. And then, of course, that stayed true over time. And then that has, I'll be 55 here in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely made an impact for me with just as I've aged, been able to do more day to day.
Yeah, the big key, especially when it comes to strength training, is your body moves in 360 degrees. So do exercises that involve rotation, twisting, bending over, standing up, going over your head, moving side to side. Don't get locked into patterns where you're just lifting up and down, because life is a lot more than just up and down. It's side to side. It's low to high. It's twisting, rotation. So train in all the different planes that you may have to use in everyday life, and you'll be less likely to hurt yourself and be more effective at whatever it is you're trying to do.
Can you give an example, Andrew, of a good functional fitness routine someone could do at home?
Yeah, absolutely. So assuming you don't have a lot of equipment, being able to get up and down out of a chair is probably the most important function you have. So an exercise like a squat coming out of a chair, if you wanted to make that more, interesting, you could lift a small weight or even a gallon of milk up over your head as you're coming up out of that chair. Twisting side to side, reaching low, and then twisting towards your opposite shoulder to mimic, almost like a chopping motion would be a good exercise. Again, using light weight. Things like planks to help strengthen your core, your abdominals, so that way your back is strong when you're lifting over, bending over to lift up things. So, yeah, it goes on and on.
I know years ago, the godfather of fitness in America, Jack LaLanne, some of our older listeners will remember that name. I'd had him on the show many times, and he was in his early 90s, and it was something because we'd be literally live on the air, and he'd go, I'd say, well, what can you recommend for somebody sitting at home right now? He said, okay, stand up. Okay, don't use your hands. Just only use your leg. Okay, now sit down. Now stand up again. And he'd start motivating people to do it right there on the radio.
Yeah, well, and for some people, just being able to get up and down off the floor is functional fitness. So, if you struggle with that, well, I would challenge you to try to do that 5 or 10 times every day.
Yeah, walking upstairs.
Yep.
I mean, I need to do better at making myself walk upstairs, even at office buildings and things like that, especially if it's just a flight or two. Every little bit helps.
Bottom line is I think our bodies were meant to move. I don't think we were designed to sit down for hours a day in front of screens. And so the more you can get up on your feet and use your entire body, I think the better your health is going to be in the long run.
We're visiting with Andrew Henderson. He's the owner of Fitness Together. They have four locations here in Knoxville. When we come back, we're going to talk about the importance of flexibility, stretching, yoga. We'll also get into diet. I'm also going to have our dollars and cents segment How do you feel about the future of Social Security and how it may impact your financial plan? And what should you do about that? So stay with us. This is More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Well, it's good because it keeps you cool.
This is More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. As you listen to News Talk 98.7 WOKI, I was just telling Andrew, right as we were coming on the air there, that I'm motivated to go home. And you asked me if I'd been on my bike in a while, because I used to do some triathlon stuff, and I haven't been on my bike in a while. So I'm going to get out and ride through the neighborhood today. I'm just going to start slow. I'm going to ease into it, do a couple laps. No big hills. There's just some hills, no big ones.
Yeah. And I was just mentioning, the great thing about bike riding, especially if you're not riding up a huge hill, is you're actually getting more airflow, so it keeps
Absolutely.
you cool.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, before we get back, we're going to have more with Andrew. I want to talk about flexibility, and I want to talk about the importance of stretching and things like that. Before we have more with Andrew, however, it is time for Dollars and Cents.
Want to be sure you are getting the most out of your retirement? For all the years of your retirement? That's the primary goal of More Living with Jim Brogan and our Dollars and Cents segment, where we provide you with an important financial tip that will help positively impact the quality of your life in retirement. And now, here's Jim with this week's Dollars and Cents tip.
Most Americans agree that Social Security cannot stay status quo. A robust majority of U.S. adults agree that change is needed in the Social Security system, according to a new survey from the Nationwide Retirement Institute. It's their 11th annual Social Security survey. Nearly 4/5, 79% of Americans surveyed believe the system needs reform. Now, we all hear, in 9 or 10 years, the trust fund will run out of money, and so the money coming into Social Security will only cover maybe around 80% of the benefits that have to be paid out. We all hear that periodically. That time clock is ticking, and I think everybody knows that something needs to happen. And with the presidential election approaching, Social Security reform is becoming more of a hot topic for voters. The survey found that 69% of respondents will factor in a candidate's stance on this issue as they proceed to the polls. That's kind of one of the problems, though, is people want to get elected, and older folks don't want to see changes to the Social Security system. Now, among the proposed changes gaining the biggest traction, one is raising the minimum eligibility age from 62 to 64, and the other one is raising the full retirement age from 67 to 69. Ultimately, either of those, and especially raising the full retirement age, will effectively be a reduction in future benefits. So how should you be planning for the future of Social Security? I think some of that depends on your age. I think if you're over 60, it's likely not going to be significant changes to Social Security. There might be changes to how your benefits are taxed. I think that probably will happen. But as you get down under 60 and you get to younger folks, under the 50 especially, I think change is inevitable. And I think that change, I don't think it means that if you're in your 20s or 30s or even in your 40s that there's nothing going to be there for you with Social Security. I do not believe that. Raising the full retirement age alone will help solve a lot of the Social Security issue. I do think what you've got to do is understand that benefits in the future, especially for those under 50, are probably going to be less than they are today, even if all they do is raise the full retirement age. I think through Americans' heightened anxiety, it's more important than ever for you to have a retirement plan that hedges against the possibility of receiving less in benefits than expected. And I think that's the message here. Not that it's not going to be there for you, because I think it will. But I do think it's going to evolve and change. It'll mean you'll have to be older to get an equivalent benefit. People are living longer and longer lives. When they set these Social Security ages initially, it was set in the early 80s. People weren't living nearly as long in the early 80s as they are now. I mean, it's 40 years later. People are living longer. So there probably needs to be some change. And I think younger folks need to be aware of that, but it puts more importance on you developing your own financial plan to be saving and investing as early as possible. That we've talked many times about the power of compound interest over time and the importance of starting early. If you didn't start early, don't worry, just get started. And as Andrew Henderson has been talking about easing into fitness, ease into saving and investing. Make sure you're putting in what your employer will match on a 401k or other company plan. Make sure you save up an emergency fund and create a written plan. Know how much you're spending so that you know how much you can save. It's going to be more and more important moving forward with the disappearance of pension plans and with potential changes to Social Security way down the line, for you to create your own plan and depend on yourself more and more for financial security.
That's our Dollars and Cents segment for this week. You can find this week's Dollars and Cents segment and others by visiting BroganFinancial.com.
Do please visit us at BroganFinancial.com. We've got a lot of resources on there. You can click on the Resources tab. You can also click on the radio button at the top. It'll take you to all our podcasts of our shows and our Dollars and Cents segments. I do want to mention we've got our fall classes coming up. The first class is through Pellissippi State, and it's a one-night class, Income Planning for Retirement. It's on August the 20th, which is about 2.5 weeks. And it's from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Pellissippi State at their Hardin Valley location. So 1 2-hour class. I think retirement income planning is probably the most overlooked area in retirement planning. The importance of how much income can you draw? How do you structure your investments to support the income? How do you manage tax planning so that you can keep more of your hard-earned life savings? What about Social Security election? The survey I just mentioned in the Dollars and Cents segment from the Nationwide Retirement Institute revealed that in the last 5 years there's become more and more of a knowledge gap between what Americans know about Social Security and what they don't know. So we get into all of these issues in this one-night income planning class. You can go to PellissippiRetirementIncome.com for more information. Again, that's on August the 20th at 6:30 p.m., PellissippiRetirementIncome.com. We're visiting with Andrew Henderson. He's been a longtime friend of the show, somebody I've known for 17 years. And we're talking about exercise, movement, creating healthy lifestyles. Let's talk about sleep, Andrew. Talk about the importance of sleep in our overall health. When is it too much? When is it not enough?
I'd say
how can we get good sleep?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been struggling with sleep myself over the last year, so I've been doing more and more research about sleep in general, how to improve it, the effects of it.
Yeah, I have found as I'm getting older, it can become more of a challenge.
Yeah, I think part of it's hormonal. Part of it is stress. You get more on your mind. Maybe more aches and pains. It's harder to stay comfortable at night. Maybe you have to get up and use the bathroom, and it's hard to fall asleep. So there's a lot of different things that we're dealing with as we get older that can make it harder. Some tips that I've tried to do is, your environment's important. So cold and dark. Your bedroom should be, cool, and it should be dark. So get rid of all the lights if you can, and try to, if you can, drop your thermostat a few degrees. You probably want to avoid, drinking a lot an hour or so before you go to bed, any kind of fluids, and probably cut off alcohol intake at least 2 or 3 hours before, because alcohol, while it can help you fall asleep faster, it can also wake you up later on and mess up with your sleep. Most research points towards staying off of your electronic devices for at least an hour before bedtime.
And even maybe not watching TV for an hour before bedtime. Maybe that's hard for me, but that's what the research says.
Reading a book might be more beneficial, or just having a conversation. So all kinds of things. Caffeine, again, it can take, I think, up to 12 hours for caffeine to work its way out of your system. So for most people, you want to cut out your caffeine probably around 1 or 2 in the afternoon.
For most people, is it that 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep is what most people need?
Everyone's different, but I'd say that's probably a good ballpark estimate for a grown adult, 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. And there's a difference between, laying in bed and actually getting quality sleep. So I know there's a lot of new devices, sleep trackers, for example, that can actually show you what state of sleep that you're in. My wife, Sarah's actually using a ring. I think it's called the Aura ring that it kind of gives you that kind of feedback.
Yeah, I think that is critically important. That's a great idea.
It is. But, lack of sleep is not just about being sleepy. It's hard to lose weight when your body is tired because of higher levels of cortisol. Your cognitive health, including greater risk of Alzheimer's disease, is related to poor sleep or lack of sleep, higher incidence of heart attacks for people who are swing shift or overnight shift workers because their sleep patterns are interrupted. So I think sleep might be one of the biggest conversations we're not having enough of when it comes to health and fitness, for so many different reasons.
It's interesting because as I've gotten old, when I was younger, I was not a morning person.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I just, I'll wake up and I'm ready to go. That doesn't mean I don't want to sleep until 9 o'clock in the morning. So as we age, it definitely becomes a little bit more of a challenge. But yeah, and there's so much with sleep disorders. You mentioned your wife wearing the Aura ring or some sort of a tracking device. We've done shows on sleep apnea and other sleep, and that's not the topic for today's show. But I guess the point is people should be very dialed in to what their sleep patterns and routines look like and be able to measure and understand, are they getting good quality sleep?
Yeah, that might be the first or second most important thing you can do, because that kind of sets the foundation for everything else. If you're tired, it's harder, to stay focused and disciplined. I think people who are tired often confuse being tired with being hungry. So we tend to, want to have a sugary, caffeinated drink to wake ourselves up, but that can interfere with our sleep pattern the next night. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. So I, would definitely dedicate your time and energy towards improving your sleep if you're not, because that's really going to set you up for success in a lot of other areas.
Now, we know that, exercise, movement, all that's critically important. I heard a trainer years and years and years ago that said 70% of how you look is what you eat, maybe 80%.
Yeah, what and how much, yeah.
So let's kind of talk a little bit about diet. Yeah, what does a good balanced diet look like? There's so much out there that contradicts in terms of when we get online and search for things. What constitutes a balanced diet in your view?
Hey, as humans, we're omnivores, and we have really very flexible ways of getting nutrition. You look at Inuits, natives to Alaska, they eat primarily high-fat protein foods because they don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. You go to tribes near the equator, and their diets look very different. So as humans, we're able to digest a lot of different kinds of food and get the nutrition that we need. So first thing I'd say is there probably is no right way to eat. It's a right way for you. Now, from a big picture, a lot of studies show that the Mediterranean diet may be a really good way to go about eating. That's primarily fruits, vegetables, fish, not quite as much red meat, probably very little red meat, some poultry, nuts, healthy fats, even a little wine, olive oil. So really covering a gamut of a lot of different, nutrients, a lot of different colors in the foods that we put on our plate seems to be, in general terms, a good way to start.
Let's talk about the importance of meal planning, Andrew. And we know, we've heard we should be shopping on the edges of the grocery store, is where the fresher food is. But talk about the importance of meal planning and even not going to the store when we're hungry and having a plan when we do go to the store.
Yeah, it's that old saying, right? People don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And that couldn't be more true than when it comes to food. Some people do better than others, but I think, at least have a grocery list, right? If you don't have a grocery list, at least have a list and only buy the things that are on that list, and preferably make that list when you're not starving. They have a lot of, free downloads you can get online of pre-made grocery lists that will actually give you items you can check off. So a produce section, a lean meat section, dairy section. Yeah, I think staying on the perimeter of the grocery store is, for the most part, a great idea. You can't get into too much trouble.
You mentioned red meat.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot out there on that too, but most cardiologists, most health people say we need to limit the amount of red meat we have. I love red meat. I love to do beef. I love to smoke and cook beef. What's too much? Over the course of a week's time, is more than 1 or 2 meals with red meat too much?
It's interesting because you hear someone like Dr. Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know his story. He's done nothing but eat red meat. He has 3 steaks a day for the last 3 years, and he has much better health now. So, again, each person's, it's individual to them. I think for most people, probably limiting red meat to no more than once or twice a week is a good start. The cut that you get, though, right? Is it a lean cut or is it a fatty cut? It's the saturated fat that's really the problem with red meat, not the meat itself so much. So try to get cuts that are leaner, and just use moderation.
In fish, I think sometimes that's overlooked, but we really should be eating a couple of meals a week, shouldn't we, of good, fit quality fish? And then what is that? What is good quality fish?
Yeah. So again, most research leans towards eating wild caught products. So salmon is a great product because it has healthy omega fatty acids. But we know that the salmon that's caught in the wild has a lot more benefit than the farm raised salmon that's loaded with colors and hormones, and basically it's just a cattle trough for fish.
Yeah, we all, as over the last 15 years. I think we have all seen how important it is, the quality of where the meat is coming from.
Yeah, the quality may be just as important, if not more important, than the type of food it actually is. How was it raised? How was it fed? Is it loaded with hormones?
I know I had Jim Simpson on the radio show a few weeks ago, Simpson's Meats.
Yeah, I'm on their email list.
He's part owner. He owns Walnut Kitchen out in Maryville as well. But we had been talking a lot off air about just the way that the animals are slaughtered.
Yeah.
That alone can have a tremendous impact on the quality of the meat. So It's just important to understand where our product is coming from.
Yeah.
We're visiting with Andrew Henderson. When we come back in our last break, I want to talk about water, the importance of water, what is the right amount, and also these weight loss drugs, these GLP-1s, Ozempic and those and of that like. So I want his opinion on that. So stay with us. This is More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Thanks for listening this week to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We've been visiting with Andrew Henderson about fitness. And, I mentioned a couple of times in the other segments, stretching. Let's talk about the importance of flexibility in stretching, and is yoga the best way? There's Pilates. What is your view on flexibility and stretching and incorporating it into your daily routine?
Yeah, we talked about functional training earlier, and flexibility is probably one of the most functional things you can train for, being able to bend over without hurting your lower back, for example, being able to twist, to get something out of the back seat in your car without rupturing a disc. So, functional flexibility goes hand in hand with functional strength. And the more I do this, the more I try not to separate flexibility from strength, because I really feel like they go hand in hand.
Which is really kind of functional fitness.
It is. So one example, if you're doing weight training, you're doing a push-up, we'll try to go all the way down because you're actually stretching out the muscles of your chest and shoulders as you're getting down into your push-up. Same with your squats. Go down as low as you can with good form. So I'm really looking at strength training as flexibility training and vice versa. Now, there's some benefit to warming up properly, before any workout. That's more of a dynamic stretching. That might be doing leg swings. Put one hand against the wall and try to swing the opposite leg up and down 10 times to stretch out your leg, but also to lubricate and warm up the joint itself. And then there's static stretching, where maybe you just grab your foot and pull your heel towards your butt for 30 seconds to stretch out your quadricep. That's really best done at the end of a workout when your muscles have already been worked. And
are you a big fan of yoga and Pilates and things like that?
I I don't claim to be a huge practitioner of yoga or Pilates. I'd like to learn more. I feel like there's some benefits to it. People who do yoga consistently really swear by the benefits. And I've kind of borrowed some of the...
You work out of a sweat
Yeah,
doing yoga.
yeah. I've borrowed some of the poses from yoga and use it with my clients, but I won't claim to be a yoga practitioner. But I see a lot more good than bad from it. I like yoga because you're actively moving your body through full ranges of motion in a way that combines strength with mobility, flexibility, and balance. And balance is another component, too, that we ought to, focus on as we get older, because use it or lose it.
Yeah, and then the older you get, you lose your balance, more chance of falling and breaking a hip, and then you lose all your mobility, and it's just not a good thing.
Yeah. So no, I think, if, yoga sounds interesting to you, then go try a class, try a beginner's class, and make sure that you're doing it the right way, though, because just like anything else, you can hurt yourself if you don't do things properly.
And I have learned with people I love, especially my dad, once people stop moving, it just is a fast decline. Physically, when you stop moving.
Yeah.
I mean, when he stopped running and then he had an accident, fell off a tractor, and then he, it just kind of one thing compounded off another. He ended up falling, breaking his hip, and it just was a downward spiral.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So anything you can do to minimize your risk of falling, of injury, of disease, you owe it to yourself and to your family and those who rely on you to do those things.
I want to talk about the weight loss drugs. For decades, so many people were looking for a magic pill. And now we have these weight loss shots. They're all over the news and social media. GLP-1s is what they're called. Talk to us about your perspective on these weight loss drugs.
So, originally these drugs weren't created for weight loss. They were created for diabetes. To be able to help with insulin uptake and reduce or control blood sugar. And they found that, weight loss was kind of a side effect. And so, of course, the pharmaceutical companies are now going into full marketing mode and promoting them as weight loss drugs. Our registered dietitian, Heidi, actually did a wonderful presentation on this. If anybody would like access, is it okay if they call the studio?
Absolutely.
We'll be happy to email them a free link to that presentation on GLP-1 drugs. The bottom line is this, is for people who are morbidly obese or have serious health concerns, including diabetes, they may be a lifesaver. They can be a very valuable treatment. But the reality is that I think over 60% of the people who lose weight using these drugs and on just about any other diet will gain the weight back once they stop taking the drug. And so you still
have to change your lifestyle.
You have to make lifestyle changes. That includes fixing your nutrition and exercising consistently.
I hate we're out of time. You mentioned your number. You have 4 stores. Tell our listeners how they can get hold of Fitness Together.
Yeah. The best way to reach us is go to www.knoxft.com and pick your location, and we'll be in touch with you.
So KNOXFT for Knox, KNOX, FitnessTogether.com.
Yes, sir.
And then you mentioned if they call, they can you can send them a link to this report on the GLP-1s?
Yeah, they can send us an email or a phone call, and we'll send you a link to that report. And happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, Andrew, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. It's always valuable.
It's been a pleasure, Jim.
Absolutely. That's Andrew Henderson, Fitness Together. Check him out at KNOXFT, KNOXFT.com. Today we've discussed wellness and health, because a greater lifestyle provides for more living so you can live the best years of your life your way. Many thanks to Wayne for engineering the show. Thanks to Jill for helping produce the show. Check us out online, BroganFinancial.com. Our next upcoming class is through Pellissippi State. You can click on classes and see our entire schedule for the fall. Have a great week. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
The views expressed by Jim Brogan and his guests are not that of Cumulus Media. Any discussion of financial, legal, and tax planning strategies is not intended to be individualized advice and is general in nature. Always consult with your advisor for advice specific to your needs. This program's content does not represent a recommendation of any particular security, strategy, or investment by Jim Brogan or Brogan Financial Incorporated.